number of my favorite things have happened already this morning. It's pretty early. That's a great sign for the rest of the day. First, we had, do you guys love it when the bell choir does their little wavy thing with the bells, and it makes that cool sound? I love that. Which led to the second thing, which is having bells is fun. It's like, you know, when you add seasoning to the worship service, it's like putting hot sauce on your eggs. So thank you guys for being the hot sauce to our liturgical eggs this morning. And thirdly, which that leads into the third thing that was good this morning, which is that we had a moment of liturgical confusion for Lutherans about standing and sitting. If you want to see what true fear looks like, look into the face of a Lutheran when they're not sure whether they should stand or they should sit. There it was. So, but you guys persevered and did marvelous. You were awesome. All right. So we're going to get down this morning with a little bit of supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Or if it's been a long time since you've seen Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, right? Kelly, can you help? We're going to do a little improv piece right here. Kelly, can you help for a second? Well, we'll see. We'll see if your best measured up. All right, here we go. Would you turn back the pages of the worship service, and would you please play us the melody? You guys don't have to sing along. Would you please play for us "We Are Called"? Thank you. Started out with just Kelly singing in the nice arrangement and everything, and slowly but surely there was this little drone that started rising. You know, you couldn't help yourselves. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. All right. That hymn has such a wonderful melody. It's so singable. Doesn't it kind of? You feel good when you sing that, don't you? You stand up taller and you make sure you sing a little bit clearer so that you don't bother the person in front of you quite so much, right? It makes you want to sing that song well, and it just feels good. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. Aren't we so happy that we have hymn writers that write such wonderful, singable arrangements and melodies to help us sing about stuff that is actually so hard we prefer not to talk about it in any other situation. The refrain to our opening hymn: we are called to act with justice. We are called to love tenderly. We are called to serve one another, to walk humbly with God. Right, that's the thrust of the Micah reading from this morning. You know, Micah wasn't a gentle guy. Micah had the responsibility of being a prophet. And, you know, we've talked from time to time about, you know, usually what kind of work is involved with prophets, right? It's pretty lonely work. You get to say really truthful things to people who are in power, who are used to getting their own way. Usually when the little guy speaks up to the big guy, what happens to the little guy? Squish like an ant, right? That's Micah. And he gets to say to Israel, and then we get to hear through the words of a very nice hymn, what does the Lord require of you? What does the Lord require of you? Act with justice, love tenderly, walk humbly with God. It's so much, it's a lot easier to deal with if you put it with the nice music. Because otherwise, when you hear that stuff on its own, it's actually so stark that it ought to make your knees just a little bit weak. Because what God requires of us, what we hear from Micah, is essentially to give up ourselves for the sake of other people. What God calls us to through Micah today is a new way to live in community. How many of you make to-do lists? How many of you make to-do lists about reminding yourself to make a to-do list? Right. Oh my goodness. You know, this is maybe a fabulous 21st century image for what Micah is railing against. About treating life with God as nothing more than this. Micah prophesies something that, so at this point, so the context, right, is that Israel has had a fabulous 15 minutes of fame, but it is now in exile, right? And the people are restless and they're wondering what's going to happen next, what's going to go on next. And Micah comes on the scene and says, hey, don't sweat. Things are going to be better, but it's going to look a little bit different. We're going to eventually have a leader who's going to be a righteous dude, kind of based on our old model of what we thought a great leader looked like. However, he's going to be better than our old leaders, because this guy is not going to abuse power. This guy is not going to revel in the authority of an institution. This guy is not going to celebrate military might, right? This guy is going to help us connect with each other, and when we connect with each other, that's going to be an expression of how we connect with God. That's what Micah's saying this morning. And so the voice that, after Micah has said this, the voice that comes back to Micah says, oh, well then what does the Lord require of us? Shall we make all these sacrifices, right? Should we bring bulls? Should we do all of this to-do list kind of stuff? Should we just be right with God by going through these certain steps, these certain actions, and we can just cross them all off of our list, and then we can go on our merry way. We can feel good about ourselves. And Micah says, no, that's not what this is about. This life with God is not about simply acting in a way, crossing your stuff off the list, so that you can get God off of your back. Guess I did my 3 good deeds for today. I'm done with you guys. I'm putting on my merry way, right? Micah says, not that. Not that. I don't want your sacrifices. I don't want your sacrifices. I don't want you to wallow in trying to make up for the stuff you think you've done wrong. What I want you to do, God says via Micah, is to live with one another in a way that looks like this. I want you to live with one another in a way where you work for justice. I want you to live with one another in a way that values and displays kindness. I want you to live with one another in a way that displays humility. Micah has the opportunity to say life with God is something deeper than we often would like it to be. Life with God is life with each other. And that means how we live with one another and love one another. And as we all know from personal experience, loving one another is hard work. It's nice that loving one another can be put to such good singable music when we sing it in church. But loving one another is crazy hard work. even if we just stopped this morning and we thought about what it meant for us to work for justice. I mean, we could talk about this for the rest of the year and never exhaust that topic. What does it mean to work for justice? The first thing that it means to work for justice is that you have to empathize with someone. That's hard enough already. That means you have to be willing to get into somebody else's shoes and look at the world from their point of view. That's not always comfortable. Because you know why? Because we get used to our own shoes. I have my favorite pair, and I bet you have yours too. The favorite shoes that we wear that becomes our vantage point for the way we experience the world. And woe to anybody who tries to get us to imagine anything otherwise. Woe for Micah. I imagine that some members of Micah's congregation got up and gave him a stern talking to after his sermon. Right? You can't talk about that stuff here, Micah. That's not how we operate at this church. And then, of course, for centuries after that, Micah's been getting the rest of us preachers in trouble too, by perpetuating that same kind of stuff. Life with God is not nice life, polite life. Life with God and therefore life with each other is meaningful life. And that meaningful life is one that takes seriously that we are bound to each other in love, and that love is hard. And that above all, as we work through that together as humanity, that we have to be patient with one another to the point where we love kindness. I started by taking a survey earlier about who makes to-do lists and who makes to-do lists to do to-do lists. I don't know if we should take a survey about how good it feels sometimes to be mean and to not love kindness. I'll put my hand down because I feel like I'm the only one right now. Okay? But we know it's the truth. It's so hard. It's so hard to embody that which God, through Micah, calls us to. Of course, the deal for us that we can celebrate as we're on that journey of living into God's call to do all of these things, we can celebrate the truth that living as God invites us all to live is never a matter of our own force of will or determination. Living as God invites us to live is the kind of thing that we are nurtured into over and over and over and over and over again by Christ. In the worst moments of how we deal with one another, and we completely forget everything that Micah has to share with us and teach us, Christ says, yeah, I'm still here. Suffering with you and for you in this, in your inability to love. But trust in my promise that I won't abandon you to your worst impulses. Trust that I will see you through this, and even you will experience new life. Talking about the things that Micah wants to talk about is really, really, really hard. It's hard because everything that he invites us to is essentially going to put us on one level or another. It's going to put us at odds with one another. With our preferences, with our opinions, with the way we think the world is supposed to operate. But that's what it means to live as people of faith. We're not called to nice. We're not called to polite. We're called to the hard work of living as loving community. My hope, I have so many hopes for you guys. I feel like I end 90% of my sermons this way. I hope you're not keeping track of all the hope that I have for you, because it might be daunting. My hope, really, for you all, is that as you continue to become who you think God is calling you to be as a congregation, my hope for you is that you'll decide time and time, and it's going to be the kind of thing where you have to decide time and time and time and time again. You're going to have to recommit again and again and again. It's a relationship, right? My hope for you is that as you continue to grow into who you think God is calling you to be as a congregation, that you continually decide to be the kind of congregation that isn't afraid to enter into the hard work of living into the type of life that God calls us to through the words of Micah. You know, I know a lot of people lament kind of the state of, well, just the church these days. I know a lot of people lament that. But if you ask me, I can't imagine us living in a moment where we have more opportunity. Where we have the opportunity to live as a people of faith who stand behind their convictions for what that means, and to boldly live into that. I believe so strongly that the world, that our city, that our county, that our local neighborhoods are just waiting for some of us to take Micah at face value and to dare and to risk our own stress to bring that vision to a reality.